in the past,
I would not have had the contentment that I have now. From the outside, you wouldn't have noticed much difference, but on the inside, there was a lot of turmoil. But even I didn't notice that a lot of the time. It was pushed down. My name is Margaret. I'm from New Zealand. On the outside, things went very well, until one day I found myself becoming unwell, and I quite quickly became very unwell. I woke up with just a little bit of pain and stiffness, and then it progressed quickly so that I couldn't open my jaw, maybe just 1 centimetre, maybe that far. It was swollen and sore, so I couldn't chew food. My mother came and made smoothies for me and mashed food. My spine became inflamed, my chest, my pelvis, my left elbow, both hands, wrists, fingers, thumbs, my right knee and my right ankle were all swollen and painful.
I started my own.
Good evening, everyone. Well, that's me, Margaret from New Zealand. And that was about 14 years ago, I believe. And I became very, very ill. I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. Now, psoriatic arthritis is related to the skin disease psoriasis, which I didn't have. It's more usual that you get the skin disease first and then a certain percentage go on to get psoriatic arthritis over time. However, I got the arthritis without the psoriasis. Psoriasis is in my family though. My brother and 2 of my maternal aunts have psoriasis. And I was told that I had a gene for this disease. And why was it switched on now? The doctors couldn't tell me the answer to that. I was someone who was not used to taking medication, but I could barely function. I had my 3 younger children at home. I'm a single mother, and I needed to look after them. I needed to be able to get out of bed and drive to work. Every movement was very, very painful. And the painkillers, I mean, I have to say I took far more than I was even prescribed. And they just gave me enough function to get out of bed and to get moving very, very slowly. But I had grown up a Seventh-day Adventist. I'd gone astray a few times, and I was definitely astray at this time in my life. But I always loved the health message. I was plant-based from my 20s. Prior to that, I'd been mostly vegetarian since very young age. When my parents became Adventists, there was a little bit of meat, not much. And I loved the health message. I loved plant-based food. When I was off track, I was always on track with the health. I didn't do everything right, but I followed it, largely. I was an active person. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. And I thought that I knew a lot about health. I thought nutrition was king, and I thought that I'd really proved that I knew about nutrition because I had 5 very healthy children that I'd brought up vegan. My youngest, he's 6'5", so strapping boy. They're all intelligent. My eldest daughter's a doctor. My eldest son is a IT geek. They're all well. They're all grown well now. 40 years ago, my eldest son is 44. 40 years ago, it wasn't common in New Zealand for people to be vegan, and my children's grandma thought they were actually going to die. And so that just made me research a bit more, so I had all the answers. About where you get this, where you get all your nutrients from. And so I was very sure that my family were very healthy and I knew what I was doing until I got sick. Because you see, there was something missing in my knowledge, but I had no idea what that was. It was one of the worst times of my life at the time. But I have to say, Pastor John, that God is good all of the time. You see, what led me to be sick came from an even worse time of my life, a time in my life where I wanted to die. I thought that life was not worth living. I thought that maybe there wasn't a God after all. I'd grown up, as I say, a Christian, Seventh-day Adventist. But now I thought, for the first time in my life, is there a God? And if there is a God, well, actually, I don't want to know about him. I think he's pretty rotten. Why does he allow suffering? Why did I have to go through what I went through? How can he say it's worth it, that Jesus would be satisfied with his sacrifice? And I used to think all sorts of terrible things, just that it was definitely not worth it. And I identified with all the suffering in the world, and if I could have just blotted out my life, I would have. But I had children, and that was the only thing that really kept me going. But even at one time in my life, I thought, how could I have brought children into this world of suffering? I couldn't even see a positive future for them. And so you can see that I had a misunderstanding of the character of God. And I didn't know that God was good all the time, that the very things that I went through would lead me to the knowledge that I needed to know, that there was something wrong inside of me. You see, I actually thought that I was quite a nice person. I thought I was, I'm pretty easygoing. I'm the kind of person, if you upset me, I probably won't tell you. I'll probably just smile and I'll say the right thing and I'll be nice. Because I don't like conflict. I'm a conflict avoider. And, I'd done lots of wrong things in my life, but I didn't think any of them were that bad. Like I wasn't a murderer or, hadn't done anything that I thought was so bad. So I didn't see that there was something inside of me that was terribly, terribly wrong and deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. I had no clue. And so I don't know how God could have opened my eyes to the problem that I had, except that I went through these experiences. And he tried very hard to get through to me. The problem God has is a difficult one. He's a good God, but if he doesn't allow the consequences of our sinful nature to come out and to cause us great difficulty and suffering, then how can he ever get through to us? How can we see that the problem is in me? And so I became very, very ill. I was in pain 24 hours a day. I found moving very difficult. I couldn't grasp something like this. I would have to lift things between my wrists. You see, when your joints are swollen and painful like that, there's no power in them. I couldn't unlock the door to my office that I was working in. I just didn't have any strength. So my daughter got me a little device to put the key on the end that gave the leverage that I needed. I couldn't push open the door to the toilet on the floor that I worked on because the door was just too heavy. I needed to take the elevator 2 flights down to where there was a door that wasn't so heavy. Now, I was a person who always took the stairs, and so for me to have to take the elevator was galling. I worked in a hospital that had 12 12 levels, and of course the management was on the top level, and if I had a meeting with management, I would walk up all the steps because that's just what you did. And so I'd been fit and active my whole life, and this was a huge shock to me at 48 years of age to suddenly be so debilitated that an elderly person would overtake me when I was walking. I couldn't understand how I had become sick. I was very fortunate that my mother did come and make smoothies for me and mash food. I lived in a house, that property, I had just bought that with my daughter-in-law, and it's built in two halves so that it houses two families, and there's a communal area in the middle. And I have no idea what my children eat, but I presume that they either fed themselves or my daughter-in-law fed them, because, just getting myself to work was very, very difficult. I'd come home, walk in the door, my bedroom was near to the garage. I would fall on the bed and that was me done. I was very, very afraid that my children, when they came anywhere near me, that they would bump me and cause me more pain. And my sister reminded me of that recently. That's her, her big memory of that time is me being afraid that anybody, especially my children, would come near and touch me and cause pain. You see, the pain never went away. It was there 24 hours a day. I was on medication. I was forced now to take some medication just to get a little bit of function. And every month I'd go and see the doctors, and every month they'd tell me the same thing. Specialists would say, Margaret, you're not getting any better. In fact, you're getting worse. More and more joints and tendons are involved every time we see you. You will have this condition for life. You'll be on immunosuppressant drugs for life. But we'll just keep trialling some newer drugs, and we'll get one that can manage the disease, and you'll be able to live an okay life. And I would go home and cry because I couldn't accept this, and so I searched and searched for an answer. I scoured the internet. I read books. I read many, many books. I didn't read them from cover to cover. Some of them I did, but most of them I'd at least peruse, finding something that made sense. And then it was my mother's birthday. She was visiting. The family were at my home, and my brother, who lives in Germany, phoned to say happy birthday to my mum. And he told me that he'd been to a health seminar with this German doctor, Dr. Horst Mueller. And he told me a little bit about it. He gave me an example of a tree. I didn't understand a word of what he said, but I did understand one thing, that maybe this doctor can help you. And so I now had some hope. And hope was something that had been lacking in my life. At this point in my life, things had moved on. I'd been in a difficult relationship, but I'd come out of that. I had a good job. I had a promotion. Fortunately, a job that, if I'd still been doing midwifery, clinical midwifery, I would have lost my job, but I had a teaching position. There was a clinical component to it, but it wasn't shift work. And so my bosses were very good to me, and I managed to keep my job. I think God really went before me and provided for every need. So I was eager to email this doctor and see if he could indeed help me. And so I emailed him a little bit about my situation. I have to say, I knew that he was a Seventh-day Adventist Christian doctor, and I was not living a Seventh-day Adventist Christian life. And so I was a little bit fearful of judgment, but I was desperate. And so I emailed him anyway. And his reply was, there is a solution to your problem in removing the cause. And this gave me great hope. Still had no idea what the cause was, no idea whatsoever. But here was a doctor, and all the other doctors had said there's no hope for your condition. Here's a doctor who said there is hope in removing the cause. And so I was very, very excited about that. And we made a time to talk, and we talked on the telephone, on the landline, because my laptop was broken. And so we spoke for 3 hours, our first conversation. Now, have you ever spoken to a doctor for 3 hours? And have you ever seen a doctor for free? There was no charge, and we spoke for 3 hours. Now that in itself, just blew me away. And I found no judgment, no condemnation, but a compassionate, sympathetic ear, and someone who, when you don't meet with judgment, when you meet with compassion. And my life wasn't a good life. I did many, many things wrong. But I didn't meet with judgment, and it means you're no longer on the defensive. You can open up and you can be honest, and you're also open to hearing the solution as well from someone who doesn't judge you. You can see yourself as you really are. And so this was the beginning of learning the law of life. He had sent me a link to some talks that he had online, which I'd watched before speaking with him, so they had an idea of it. And I have to say that it did actually make sense to me. I did question quite a few things because of my health background, because of my background in natural remedies as well. And so we had discussions backwards and forwards until one day he said, "Margaret, have you found the solution, or are you still looking?" And that was a pivotal moment, because that was when I decided I'm going to give this a go. Exercising the faith of the smallest mustard seed you can imagine. Somewhat like Captain Naaman, what have I got to lose? I have nothing to lose. This is free. It cost me nothing. I'll give it a go. That was all the faith I had. And I thought, okay, I need to believe that there's a God, and he's a good God. And so I prayed to this God, and I asked him to help me to have divine love for those that I thought had hurt me. Help me to give love without expecting anything in return, especially for those who I believed had hurt me. Help me to be a channel of his love. And I didn't understand a lot, but I understood that much. And I just prayed and I prayed and I prayed. I would drive to work and I'd be praying. I would park the car and I'd be praying. I'd be walking to my office and I'd be praying, and it was the same prayer. It was the same prayer. Help me to have divine love for the people who've hurt me. Help me to... there's a couple of other things that have just gone from my mind, but this was the big one. Oh yeah, help me... there's another big one that comes first, right? Help me to make you my love source. Now, I had no clue how to do that. I had absolutely no clue. How do you make God your love source? I mean, where is God, How do I do that? But I prayed for it over and over and over again. And I had a great fear of reading the Bible. I had, coming out of the relationship, I had a breakdown as well, a mental breakdown, so that I'd become very severely depressed, very anxious, and I couldn't read the Bible during that time. All I read in the Bible was condemnation. But now I knew that I had to take love from God. I needed to believe his words. I couldn't read any of the Old Testament at that time. I have to tell you that I love the Old Testament now, especially love Deuteronomy. It's I have to say, my favourite book, but I couldn't read it at that time. And so I Googled the Bible promises. God just meets us where we are. I Googled the Bible promises on health. And as I read them for the first time, I thought that they applied to me. I don't know, God just gave me the ability to put that little bit of faith into action and to really take that information in, and it fed my body. I can remember just starting to feel better, to feel amazingly at peace and happy, and feeling this huge burden rolling off me. I don't remember that I thought about it as going to the cross, but I knew that I was God's child, that He accepted me, that He gave me a new life, that my past was gone, and I remember that I had this real sense of lightness, of freedom. And as well as the Bible promises, the other thing I read was Steps to Christ. Now, I was familiar with this book. I'd read many of Ellen White's writings from, like in my 20s and throughout my life at various different stages, because sometimes, I'd been a good churchgoer and reading all the things, and other times not. And I always loved her description of the economy of giving, of that God was love. Her description of God's love was so beautiful. And so now as I'm reading it again, it's all flooding back to me. And I'm overwhelmed with how good God is, and with and the beauty of His law. I mean, His law is a law of love. And just really seeing clearly how everything He made to function by love. And these thoughts, they fueled my spirit and healed my body. And when I saw the doctors, I'd go home and cry, and they'd always ask me what I'd researched. And, I knew these doctors. I'd pass them in the corridors in the hospital, and they said, Margaret, have you thought about becoming a health researcher? And I'd say, no, I just want to find the solution. And so this particular time now, when I'd been introduced to Dr. Horst Mueller, and they asked me, what have you researched this month? I told them all about it, and they just said, you just keep believing that, Margaret, and ushered me out of their office. I didn't go home and cry. I went home and I cancelled my next month's appointment. I thought, I do not need that negativity. I had my monthly bloods taken, which, would tell me the progress of the disease, but cancelled the appointment and went back in 2 months' time. And in 2 months' time, I could grasp things. I could bend, I could stretch, I could squat. And I can remember squatting down and saying, this right knee is still just a little bit stiff. I'd sort of get down this far. It's just a little bit stiff there. And the doctor said, don't even worry about that. You can bend better than I can. And they were simply astounded, because I was a very bad case of arthritis. I don't know if you saw it there. It was in my jaw, both TMJs, in my spine, which was very, very painful, in my chest, in my pelvis, in my left elbow, both hands, wrists, fingers and thumbs, my right knee and my right ankle. And every month, something else was affected. And now in 2 months, and I was supposedly never to recover, I was on no drugs, and I was, maybe 95% well. And I've been well ever since. Praise the Lord. Last year I spoke to the rheumatologist who I was under, because the people who produced the documentary wondered if maybe he would consent to being interviewed. Well, he wouldn't consent to being interviewed, but he was very interested to know my progress, and he was very happy about it. So praise the Lord. There is hope. There is hope in knowing the issue of our hearts and coming to God, to the cross for the solution. There is no other solution. Oh. Yes, are there any questions? Yes.
Did you give your rheumatologist a book by Dr. Mueller?
We didn't have a printed one when I contacted him. I sent him the link, but yes, I intend on delivering him a physical copy, because I think, a link in an email can just get overlooked. So yes, thank you for the reminder. That is top of my list to do. He was quite open. He was an Indian doctor, and so he was quite open to the mind-body connection. So yes, he needs a book. Thank you. Yes.
Medication-wise, did you stop your medication from the time after you talked to Dr. Mueller and you didn't take anything?
Well, actually, I tried many things before I found out about Dr. Mueller, and at the time I had found him, I was water fasting, and I have to say, of all the things that I tried, the water fasting, it took away my pain. So I did 5 days of juice fasting, then my book on water fasting came by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, great book, and so I started doing that, and I got to the 2-week mark, but I had lost a lot of weight. So I'd started off probably 1 or 2 kgs less than I am now. And I lost about 12 kg with the sickness. I couldn't eat, I felt sick all the time, and the medication also made me feel sick. So I lost a lot of weight. I was skin and bone. I looked anorexic. I was so embarrassed. I bought my first puffer jacket, and I wore track pants under my skinny jeans because I was very, embarrassed about being so thin. But so the water fasting, to do that, because I needed to take the medication with food, I weaned myself off the medication first. I did the water fasting. My pain went away, my function came back, but then I was so thin, I didn't think it was a good idea to continue it. And what Dr. Mueller said, the only fast that I needed was the fast of Isaiah 58. Now at that point, when I first started eating again, the pain and the disability was back. But as I put into practice the Isaiah 58 fasting, I got better. Yeah. So yes, I was off the medication at that point. Yeah.
What type of water were you taking? Is it a special type of
No, nothing special, just tap water.
Tap water?
Yeah. Oh, tank water. I had rainwater tank. Yeah.
Can you explain the Isaiah 58 fast, sorry?
Can anybody quote it? This is the fast that I have chosen to loose the bands of wickedness. Deal my bread to the hungry. It's, what's that? Clothe the naked? Yes. Yep. You break the bonds of the oppressed.
So you serve others.
Yes.
I forgot that yourself.
Yes, it was very difficult to forget about myself when I was in so much pain, but yes. I'll give you this. One of the things I tried to do, because I knew that I needed to be a channel of blessing and to give without expectation, and so I live with my daughter-in-law, and she's very, very lovely, but when you live with people, silly little things annoy you. It wasn't her fault, it was my heart. She would leave a tea towel in the pantry, just chuck it on the floor because it was a big house and she didn't want to walk all the way down to the wash house. And that used to really annoy me. And I thought, and because I was so disabled, there wasn't much I could do for other people physically. And I thought, okay, here's one thing I can do. With love, I can pick up that tea towel and take it to the laundry, with no resentment. And that was one little thing I did. That was me trying to, practically apply what I had learned.
Any other questions? 2 questions.
I just wanted to ask in terms of maintaining your health and keeping your sickness intact, you know what I mean? So that it's not coming back.
Yeah.
Because I think you said that it went away and then started to come back.
The water fasting took away the pain, but it didn't cure the disease. So as soon as I started eating food again, it was there. But as I put into practice the law of life, as I had learned it, it went away and it didn't come back. So I have psoriatic arthritis is quite aggressive. It's like it's an inflammatory type of arthritis, like similar to rheumatoid, but more aggressive, and so you get joint deformation quite quickly. So I've got big, thick thumb joints, and I've got these nice little reminders that God has left me with to remind me of what I had, but that it's gone. So I've got the deformation there, but I've got no inflammation, no active disease. But miraculously, my jaw had receded, and my brother who lived in Scotland, when he came and visited, he said, "What's happened to you? You've become a chinless wonder." And that was because my jaw had receded, and I found it very difficult to speak, and I did a lot of teaching in my job, and I would get very, very fatigued. My throat would get sore. I'd sort of stumble over my words a bit because of the jaw having receded, and so they were going to replace the TMJs. I was a little bit hesitant with this because the surgeon was quite old with shaky hands, and they'd only ever done 3 in the hospital where I was, and so I wanted to bide some time, and they said if I had my teeth straightened, then that get a better result. So I had braces for a year, and then the braces came off, and the surgeon said, "We really should x-ray your jaw again." They x-rayed it, and they said, "You don't need replacement surgery. You have got bone regrowth in your lower jaw," which is it's not completely unheard of, but it is extremely unusual, especially for someone over 50, which I was at that time. So God is good. It didn't grow back completely, but I don't think I'm a chinless wonder. Maybe I am, I don't know. But whatever it is, I'm very happy with what God has restored.
I wondered why me. I tried very hard to get better, and none of it was helping. So I was constantly worrying about what will happen in the future.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
My name is Kylie, and I'm from Australia. I was very sick, and I was very stressed about the poor health that I had. I'd been sick for 25 years and constantly seeing naturopaths and doctors, but never getting a firm diagnosis. I had constantly trying to manage symptoms and taking lots of different medications, supplements, every protocol that you could try, I was trying it. So my life was a complete mess, chaos, hopelessness, definitely. The attempt of trying to get better really wrecked my mental health until I had a nervous breakdown. And because of the stress of trying to get better and it not working, so life was very difficult.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Terry, for having me. And yeah, my name's Kylie from New South Wales. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight and share my experience with the law of life. I had a nervous breakdown Christmas 2021. I'd come to the end of myself trying to get better. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease and mold poisoning, and I had spent all my savings trying to get better. I had done a whole bunch of really grueling, unpleasant protocols to recover. The really strict diets didn't work. The really expensive natural doctors that were very lovely, but yeah, I followed their protocols and I still would get sick. Then I tried all the different medications. So by the time I had the mental breakdown in 2021, I was on 11 different prescription medications. I was on the benzos. That was the only thing that was keeping me functioning. And yeah, I was just getting sicker and sicker and sicker despite all the big efforts and the expensive doctors. And in that unsolvable prison, yeah, I had no hope at all. It was pretty dark, and the reason was the Lyme disease, the mold poisoning, that had gotten worse. So now I developed mast cell, which is too much histamine. So now chemicals were a problem. So I couldn't deal with perfumes and deodorants and soaps and things like that. So my problem was that I needed a bubble to live in, and I could not get that bubble. And my health was as good as my last exposure. So the science behind the mold treatment is quite reliable and proven, and there's, you know, a whole bunch of steps that you can do. You get to step 12 and you're all set, you're healed. I couldn't get past step 1. Step 1 is you have to have a home or a workplace that has low levels of mold in order for the medications to work, and then you'll recover. So if you stay, the doctor's advice and what their research showed, if you stay in a mouldy home and you're on their protocol, it's like putting water in a leaky bucket. You know, a hole in the bucket, it's just a waste of time. So you have to get your house tested, and they test the species and the counts, and if it fails, then you have to move house, and you have to Hefer vacuum everything, and all your soft furnishings have to go, because you could take one home's species of mould into the new one, and then you're back at square one. You don't know what is causing the bad health. So we, you know, had to throw out our journals and Bibles, and my son was really young, his fluffy toys, all the mattresses and doonas and things like that, so that I would, you know, get better, and then we'd go to the new house. And so we did that not only once but 4 times, and each time I'd test a house and go into it, we'd move in, and then I'd get sicker. And so, you know, as a mum, all you want to do is build a nest for the family. And there was no nest happening during that time. So, yeah, by the time I got to the 4th move, I was out of savings, I was out of energy, completely over it and defeated. And yeah, it was really devastating. And the crisis that I had in 2021, I think, was a reaction to the failure of trying to get better. 2 years later is when a friend from my church said, I have a doctor from Germany coming over, you should come and listen to him, and he'll give you some good insights about mould and things like that. And so I went along to Dr. Horst's seminar, and yeah, I was blown away. It was completely different information, and I didn't quite understand everything, but the main gist of it was that there is an option that I hadn't tried yet, and that just a little flicker of hope came back into my heart, because it was gone. I was in despair, and I was able to have counselling with him, and he said that the mould, it might have been the means by which I got sick. It's not the root cause. So if you get to the root cause, then your health will recover, the effects will resolve. And so that gave me something to work with. And I started to study the law of life and learn about what that root cause was. And it didn't involve difficult and painful health protocols or strict diets, and it wasn't expensive, and it meant spending time with the Lord. So I thought, this sounds too good to be true. This sounds lovely. And we had Stephanie, who's here. She also came to my church with her sister and gave us more information. And it was at that point I thought, this is a total game changer for me. This message is, where it taught me how to fight the battle in the only productive and effective way. So previously, when I'd do a strict diet or follow a doctor's protocol, I'm treating the leaves on a tree. I'm up in the branches and just treating one leaf at a time. But the law of life method teaches you how to fight the right battle and get to the root of the disease, which is your thoughts. And in my attempts to get better, I actually went through a New Age phase, because a lot of the healing modalities come through the New Age. And so I'd done a lot of thought work. I knew that toxic thoughts are bad for your health, but I couldn't do anything about the negative ways that I was thinking. And so I knew I was hurting myself. And so the self-help information and all of that, it causes you to hate yourself even more, because you know that you're harming yourself with toxic thoughts and you can't stop them. And when you have a crisis, that's when the positive thinking nonsense flies out the window, and you actually see how much, how many fearful thoughts are there. And so the beauty of this message was that I learnt the thoughts are subconscious and they're automatic, so you're not to blame for it. And that was like, whew, what a relief. Like, praise the Lord, because I'm destroying myself, but I'm not doing it deliberately. And that gave me so much more hope, and learning about how the mind and the spirit and the body work together. It was so much more concrete than the New Age information that I had learned, and the self-help information. A lot of that is in the church as well. And this was something that I could grab onto. And each time I would have a toxic thought, I knew now, okay, I'm going to hold it captive to Jesus. I'm going to exchange the nature that I was born with at the cross and obtain Jesus' new nature, the new man. So it taught me how to fight the battle more efficiently. And my health has improved gradually. And so it's like not a dramatic, miraculous process for me. It's been a steady increase, but I do still get flare-ups of histamine and other issues. These are like my friendly reminders that there's issues in my heart that I haven't yet dealt with. And I have to go to the Lord and say, where am I having others as my source and expecting things for them and not giving them love? Where am I not loving? And asking Jesus to show me those thoughts. And it's really interesting. Some health symptoms can be resolved in 24 hours. Like I had I had developed a disc pain in my back, and I hadn't had that kind of pain for good 12 years, and there it was, severe, and I was like, oh, this is intense, Lord, what's going on? And then after searching my heart with him for that night and day, I was able to, he resolved that pain for me. And so there's been really quick, immediate releases of pain, but other issues are still ongoing, and I still haven't got to the bottom of it. And I know that searching my heart with the Lord is number one, and the diet and the exercise and the nutrition is number two. And praise the Lord, mental health is improving as well. So yeah, I used to struggle so much with anxiety and fear. I still do, but not as much as what I had done back in 2021. And it's a joy, it's a joyful journey. Being a Christian is a lot more fun now, praise the Lord. I was really works-based before. This message has shown me how how manipulative I am of God, and trying to, if I do this, then God owes me that. And yeah, it's really taught me that, righteousness by faith. It's not a supplement that's going to help me. It's not a mental hack. It's only Jesus and his nature that I, through my self-governance, grab onto and sow that into my heart. That is the only solution. There's one solution because there's one problem, and the one problem is the sinful nature. So the fact that there's no blame was the biggest blessing. The second biggest blessing was that I didn't have to be scared of the air anymore. Okay, so I didn't need to, because I was terrified of it, and I never thought that I'd get on a plane again because of the mould issue. I never thought I'd sleep in, mouldy places again, and I have, and I have the next day I usually would have the worst symptoms. I didn't get the worst symptoms the next day. And then other times I didn't get any mould exposure and I'd have huge mould symptoms. So that proved to me that it's not the root cause of the symptoms, that my thoughts are at play as well. But to not be afraid of the air and not to need that bubble to live in is truly the hugest blessing. Opens up so many more possibilities, and I can't thank God enough, and Carmen, who invited me, and Dr. Horst for sharing that. That is huge. And the mould and the bacteria and the parasites and the viruses, they can't exist or function by themselves. They have to have a medium on which they feed. They're not the all-powerful thing that we've been taught. So yeah, that's been a huge blessing. Thanks, Terry. Did anyone have any questions?
Isn't Lyme disease connected with ticks?
Yeah, the Lyme disease, I had gotten it in America and then had 3 tick bites, and by the 3rd tick bite I was really showing symptoms. But
So ticks were leading off for a day?
Correct. However, when I learnt the law of life, one thing that's helpful to do is to do your timeline of your life and what were the main events. And the main events also correlated with the diagnosis of my disease. And so the root cause for my diseases was some really significant family conflicts that had happened, and the way I perceived those conflicts and the way that I perceived my other family members' reactions, that's why I got sick. I didn't like the way that they were reacting. I didn't like the way I reacted. So there was 3 really intense family conflicts. Yeah, and I was not a happy camper about those. And through learning the law of life, I can see that I wanted acceptance and belonging and appreciation. I wanted worship from my family. They were my treasure. In these conflicts, I lost my treasure. They were gone. So my happiness is as good as, how well my family were treating me. And the law of life shows me that they didn't mean to do that. They're acting out of the same nature that I have. It's not personal, and we love each other very much. It's just the sinful nature. We end up hurting each other because we have the expectations from each other. So, yeah. And here's the thing, it's a process. So I still am frightened of ticks. This morning we went in the bush and I want to stick to the track because I'm still, it takes time to renew the mind that it's not the externals, it's the internals. So each time I feel the fear of the tick or the mould or the perfume, which is nearly every day, I have to say, Jesus, that's your sphere of action. Okay, my sphere is just here. I can't control the air and the ticks. If a tick bites me, then it's God's sphere of action. It's now his problem. Yeah. But the sinful nature tries to fight for survival. It doesn't want to die. It just is always trying to fight to save itself. But Jesus said, if you try to hold on to your life, what will happen? You'll lose it. But if you give your life, you'll gain it. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, has the relationship healed as well now between your siblings or your...
So, yeah, in some areas and some areas not. Yeah, so, but the best part is the best part is knowing how to really love them, and not from me, but to be a channel for God's love. So, and having them at the right end of the channel. So I really do want to love them with God's love, not a selfish love. So it's now a fun thing where when I get to see them, how much can I love on them with God's love? Because it's not going to cost me anything. And we actually can have a good time. Whereas before I was really trying to manipulate everything. How can I get their affection or their attention? So, yeah. And in the relationships that haven't healed, well, yeah, it doesn't matter. The same purpose is still to love on them with God's love. And if they don't want that, then I give them liberty through Jesus. I can't do it in the old man. Yeah. So if they don't, I do have relationships where they don't want to hang out with me. So I just have to give them that liberty. Yeah.